This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Upgrade your business with Shopify, home of the #1 checkout on the planet. Shop Pay boosts conversions up to 50%, meaning fewer carts going abandoned and more sales going cha-ching. So if you're into growing your business, get a commerce platform that's ready to sell wherever your customers are. Visit shopify.com to upgrade your selling today.
Hi, I'm Tim Burgess, and this is the LSQ podcast.
"2020 certainly has challenged both artists and fans to find new ways to come together in the absence of concerts to share our love of music, and I've been really inspired by some of the creative solutions artists have come up with. For instance, back in late March, during the early days of lockdown, singer-songwriter and Charlatans frontman Tim Burgess started hosting a series of online listening parties. It's called Tim's Twitter Listening Party, and the way it works is everyone presses play on the designated album at the same time, including either the artist or a member of the band or someone significantly connected to the making of the LP, and then we all tweet along together, sharing our favorite moments as the artist contributes rare insight. It's super fun, and not at all surprising that it's become massively popular. By the time I connected with Tim over the summer to record this conversation, he'd already hosted more than 350 Twitter listening parties, and there's no end in sight, luckily. I guarantee he's already done at least a couple of your favorite albums. And you can check the archive and watch a real-time feed of the party at timstwitterlisteningparty.com. My curiosity about that also gave me an excuse to talk to Tim about his creative journey, so we dig into that as well in episode 53 of LSQ. Hi, I'm Jenny LSQ. Let's get into it.
Well, it was something that I'd done for Charlatans, and some of my solo albums I'd kind of like, just randomly, or if there was kind of anniversary of the album, I would just, reach out to my followers on Twitter and say, should I do a listening party? And, there'd be a lot of enjoyment and lots of requests for, yes, let's do it. So when the lockdown began, I thought I'd do some friendly again. It would have been like about the fourth time I'd done it. and Alex from Franz Ferdinand said, I love that album. I bought it when I was like 19 years old or whatever. And I just thought, well, do a Franz Ferdinand one. Thinking he was going to do their new one, he said, let's go with the debut, and same went for Dave Rowntree. We went with Park Life for Blur, and Bonehead went for Definitely Maybe. And it was kind of like, wow, it's the thing. And then Wendy Smith from Prefab Sprout, who's like one of my favourite people in the world, she did the fifth one, and it kind of like, that was a really emotional one. There was like big, and there was like, a humongous, like with Definitely Maybe, and then Prefab Sprout, that was like really thoughtful, beautiful record, and Wendy doing it. It was just a real, open the door to a new emotion.
I mean, is that when you started just thinking, okay, how many of these, just booking them? I mean, you made it your job. You've made this your job.
Yeah, yes, my unpaid job, which is
thank you.
No, it's cool. I just got a lot of enjoyment from it, and wanted to see, I within those first 5 parties, I'd written out a kind of a document that I would send to people, and it was very basic. It was like, this is what I do when I do my parties. You follow these guidelines, and everyone took them, and the next 20 had this document, and or the next 30 or whatever, and it was really interesting that nobody did it the same, and I just thought that was really fantastic. There's a blueprint, but nobody did it the same. It was nice.
And so are you now looking at is there a next phase of it?
Well, it's hard. It's an organic thing, and within weeks, people were thinking about ways of joining the party to promote their new record. And that's fine, that's cool. There was record labels were helping promote, and that's been a continuous thing. And then also kind of like, advertising the record around it and things like that. And that's been a thing too. So whether that just continues to be, that's all I really know. There are bands that we've booked, for the parties at the end of September and early October. I mean,
right.
It's not as intense as it was during the lockdown when everybody had to stay at home. But right. There's still a really great, it's a propulsive kind of, thing. It's happening. There isn't one tonight, and it's like the second night I think in a couple of weeks that have taken off. But I'm kind of, I need it. And then it's 2 tomorrow night, and it was 2 the night before, and it was only ever meant to be 1 a night. That's all I promised at first. But then it got incredibly insane in a beautiful way.
So what were the first things as a kid that you had, that you fixated on as a fan?
As a fan, the first thing that my first single bought was Little Jimmy Osmond, 6 years old. After that, it was punk music, like Sex Pistols, Devo, New Wave, Blondie, Clash, and then more kind of like obsessed with a band called Crass. I was 13 years old, and I went to a local scout hall, and Crass, Poison Girls and Zounds played, and it was like, obviously we're the youngest there, but the oldest there was probably about 17, so it was like, not that much of a difference. And then after that, Factory Records, Tony Wilson. I was obsessed with Factory from maybe 1982 till the 90s, and then I don't know. I love everything really.
Going back though to the earliest stuff, so where would you go to get music as a little kid?
You mean record shops or?
Yeah. What was the local?
Oh well, I grew up 20 miles outside of Manchester. So when I was a little kid, I would go to the local town, which would have a Woolworths or like the equivalent of a Walmart, and just buy 7 inches, and because albums weren't a thing when I was that young, and then when I was
a single is cheap. You get a single.
And a single's cheap, and so instant, and you get a lot for your money, and an A and a B side, and I really hammered those A's and B's, and then when I was like again, like my 13 seems like a big year for me, and I would go to Manchester with my friends, and be scared, but but feel that it was a real rite of passage.
Yeah, do a little scared shopping.
Yeah, and so there's lots of markets in Manchester that had punk singles, and it was a really beautiful thing.
Were there any particular people in your life, whether older friends or siblings, who really led you in the right direction? Obviously, some of that music was just what was happening, but who were your kind of guides? Who were your guides to what music to be listening to? Yeah,
my first guide was my uncle Andrew, who was my mother's youngest brother. So she's the eldest of 6. Her youngest brother was only like 5 years older than me. So, but he had some great records, like early Genesis, Peter Gabriel era, Jethro Tull, and some Led Zeppelin and things like that, and it was kind of just the idea of seeing records, I think, was an amazing thing. Albums, and I was just looking around, he had posters in his room and things like that. And then my friends all seem to have like 2 older brothers, So so when I was 13, obviously they had brothers who were 17, and that was, they'd hold our hands through some,
Did you think at this point, were you starting to play music yourself or write songs yet at 13-ish?
Yeah, definitely. And you know, I didn't know what I wanted to play. My first instrument from Andrew, my uncle again, was a bass guitar, and he tried to teach me "The Bed's Too Big Without You" by the Police, or by are they called the Police or Police? The Police.
Yeah.
And I wasn't interested, but I loved playing Warhead by UK Subs. So it was helpful, and then I got a guitar, and you know I like to pose with it more than anything, and so a synth, because you know New Order and Depeche Mode were everything at that point, and but yeah, I was in a band and singing, at you know maybe 19, 20, and then I left that band, joined the Charlatans at 21.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/results to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
But at what point did playing music feel important to you right away? Or was it, did you immediately feel it turned on something to play music?
Listening to music more than playing. I've only really kind of like got into playing, you know, as time has gone on. I used to love rehearsing with the band and just sort of like hearing things that you can only hear once, and it's like, you know, it's like, oh my god, how did we do that? You know, those kind of things, those youthful, you know, exuberant rehearsals are just amazing. There's nothing that really, you know, and when I hear like records by say Aztec Camera and Orange Juice, their debut albums, I hear that on their records, and you know, and I guess I hear that with some Friendly as well, you know.
Yeah, no, I was gonna ask, like, where was there a moment early on in between not being sure if it was good yet and somehow realizing, you know, you had listened to enough music at that point already in your life to know what a good song is? Like, you must have felt like, okay, I think we're on to something.
I really felt that. You know, I'd been in bands since, you know, like in my teens, and you know, when I went for the rehearsal or the tryout at the show, I already knew them, but I actually kind of, you know, it wasn't called an audition, but I knew that it kind of was, and I just felt they played 3 instrumentals, and I just felt that it was the best thing I'd ever heard, and that's, you know, I'm sure lots of people in bands think that, but I'd never. It was on another level than anything I'd been in before.
And when you hear something like that, from your perspective, you're thinking, are you already hearing what you can add to it? You know, is that how your writing experience works?
It was funny. I sang something over the top of one of the songs, and I thought I was doing a pretty good Iggy Pop, Jim Morrison impression, right? And Martin, our bass player, said, "Let's do it again. Maybe try singing this time, Tim." So it went from a kind of like shouty kind of like that, you know, passionate thing, or in my head quite passionate thing, to just singing my way through it, some words that I had, and it really felt like it was like the first time singing. It was very quiet. It was very I didn't have a voice yet. It was, you know, but it was a singing voice that I'd never tried before, because, you know, Punk and Iggy and Jim, you know, it can be shouty. You can get away with just like screaming, you know, down the mic and things like that. And so when I started singing, I was just trying to sing in tune, and it was kind of a bit pretty maybe, and you know, but it was good. It sounded okay.
And when did it start to feel like it was taking off? I mean, I'm guessing from the way you're describing it, that wasn't any part of the expectation in 1989, 1990, like, oh yeah, our band is going to be huge?
No, well, not really, but there was a huge kind of like thing bubbling and exploding at the same time. So it'd been bubbling for a while, especially in Manchester. But there'd been bands like, say, who, in my opinion, kind of like helped lead the way as well, like Sundays and Pastels, and this was obviously anything on Factory, which is like New Order and Quando Quango, 56th Street, ACR. All of that all fed into the same thing, the Hacienda, the dance music craze, but Scottish bands like Pastels and Soup Dragons too, and it was all happening, and everyone thought it was part of the same thing, which was led by the Stone Roses and the Happy Mondays. And it was, but it wasn't, but it was worldwide. It was.
But it seemed right. But from your perspective in the band, it seemed like once you knew you had some genuinely really good songs, you felt like this could happen for us. Look at what's happening. This could happen for us.
It seemed to take ages, but it actually only took us about 6 months. When you're young, time just goes so slow, and so we'd all wanted to do it all our lives, even though we didn't admit it. We'd all wanted to be in music, or have a successful band. And when we got together, we thought, this is it. This is definitely sounds like something that we'd never experienced before in our prospective bands that we were in, before.
What felt like some of the early important milestones for you where you thought, oh, wow, okay, once the 6 months of torturous waiting had passed, what were some of the things that you personally were like, oh boy, this is a moment for me?
Okay, well, so very early, they had 3 instrumentals, plus they'd had a singer before I was in the band, who they'd been working with. So they had 4 or 5 songs that they were going to use in a live thing that I had to kind of like learn and sing. And really quickly, those just went out of the window. And then we replaced it with Pink Floyd, Lucifer Sam, brilliant Syd Barrett era Pink Floyd. And that stayed in briefly, but it was when we had like 9 songs of our own. That was milestone number 1. Then recording with Chris Nagle, our first single, Indian Rope, that was like, the first time I thought, wow, we've really made it, because I've only seen Chris Nagle's name before, and it's been on all of my favourite records.
Yeah. I'm intrigued by how long now you've been kind of asserting your music fanhood as like a thing. Like even I'm thinking about that record you made with Kurt Wagner back, not quite a decade ago, but as a successful artist, like you don't always have to approach other artists and say, hey, let's do something. I'm a fan of you. Let's do something together. So I'm curious, just kind of what you learn from those experiences, or what it is that makes you gravitate toward collaboration.
Yeah. Well, with Kurt, I first heard his music on a friend gave me a compilation cassette, and I listened to it in maybe '97, and I was looking for something that was different. Charlatans had done 5 albums that were all kind of like certainly the 3 before the tape. They'd all kind of like gone on a trajectory and all kind of like the sound wise it had just been quite natural development, and I was looking for something different, and I heard Kurt Wagner's voice and the tone of his musicality. I was really getting into country music, like Graham Parsons style country. I've been, loved the Byrds for years, but Graham, and then I thought, well, maybe I'll listen to some Hank Williams and then Woody Guthrie, and then I heard Lamb Chop and thought, wow, this is really the real deal, and his lyrics are so kind of otherworldly, and obviously that, but that was my impression, and I just listened to it and started to buy the records, and then I met him, and then I in 2001, it was quite a long time. I went to see him do a solo show in Manchester, and went to meet him before, saw the show, loved it, went to see him after, and then carried his guitar or his amp, because he had a bit of a bad back, and I was carrying his amp for him, put it in his van, and just said, let's write together one day. I'd really love to write a song. And he said, okay, Tim, you write the music, and I'll write the words. And that, I was always the person who wrote the words in my band and never wrote any music. So I thought, that's so great. I love that. And 10 years later, I went to see him in Nashville and told him that I wanted to do an album with him. And what does he think? Yeah, sorry, I missed a big chunk out in the middle. But, it took me a long time to go to Nashville for, no reason. Just time just slips away, and I was doing other things. But he was very much like inspiring my writing, especially on Us and Us Only and Wonderland. Certainly elements of Nixon and Wonderland, and everything else in the album before. So it made absolute as a fan, it just made absolute sense, and it felt authentic to actually work with him, because I kind of like used a few of his ideas anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because a lot of artists, I think there's a certain artists say that they can't listen to too much other music, or when they're looking for new ideas, it's counterproductive to listen to too much of other artists. And then there's folks such as yourself, what you seem to be saying is that you're inspired by listening to more and more music is like gives you ideas. And I'm curious if, and this is kind of an abstract question, but I'm curious if when you're listening to an album you love by another artist, as you do for Twitter listening parties every day, if the feeling of liking another artist's song and the feeling of writing a good song of your own, like, if it feels similar,
Yes. Well, it is abstract, and music is abstract. I think. Let me think. So I listen to music all the time, and I feel kind of lost if I'm not really listening to music. I mean, it's not on now, it's not on permanently, but if 3 days have gone by and I've not really listened to a record, it does me in a little bit. And I'm not so much looking for inspiration. I just want to hear somebody else do something as opposed to myself. It takes me away from me. And then, I also love other people. I love community. I love the social aspect of music. I love the idea of talking about music. And so, yeah, it just all feeds in. Though I don't... There have been times where, especially when I was like learning the craft, that I would sort of like go, right, that I'd like to have that in my song. And pretty much tried to take something, and it never turns out the same, but you kind of like take that idea. And now I don't do that. I feel like I've got enough I've learnt enough, but I don't stop things. I don't stop ideas just coming out naturally, and who knows where they come from.
And so the album that you just put out back in May, your latest solo album, tell me more about that group of songs. When did you first start working on I Love the New Sky, those tracks? And was there anything different in how you approached it from other solo collections?
Okay, so the answer to that is not really. I didn't really approach it any differently. I definitely had a desire to write an album, and this is no disrespect to the Charlatans in any way, but I always felt that I'd done my solo projects in between Charlatans albums in a bit of a rush, and Charlatans had done 5 years of hard work, 2 albums, an EP, and toured the world. So I just felt, we said we weren't going to do anything for a year or two, and I had a year to write this an album, and I thought, oh, I'm going to really show people what I can do. And so that was the spirit. But not really, as far as the writing goes, not really any different. Just tried to let the chords inform the melody, and the melody, gradually the lyrics come, and then I replace them pretty much all the time, and then, just until it's something that I'm really happy with. But, something small in a song can make me really happy at the beginning, enough to get it going,
Do you have a kind of a particular routine for when you're writing, or a time of day, or a room in your home that you go to? What's it look like?
It looks like this. This is the room.
Nice.
It's not amazing. That bit's really great.
I love that bit.
Yeah, and so the last few years, I kind of like, I've got a 7-year-old little boy. So I've been dropping him off at school, and then I go to the gym, right? So very, very different than how it used to be. and at the gym, I have an iPod, and I just do 45 minutes on the treadmill, and then drive back, and then start. And does the music I listen to on the treadmill inspire anything? Not really, because it's usually Dead Kennedys I listen to, or anything just to kind of like just get rid of everything that's inside my mind. And it's great to work out to Fresh Fruit for Rotten Vegetables. It's like and that's pretty much always my go-to. And I'll listen to little bits of other stuff, like, I don't know, Eagles, or just anything. The spectrum's like pretty wide and far apart.
And then you have some time before school, before you have to pick him up from school, where you can write. Yeah. And also squeeze in Tim's Twitter listening parties somewhere along the way.
That's at night, and he's not been to school since the Twitter party started. It's been quite a juggling act, So
he gets to hear all of these albums, though. He's 350 some records. He's gotten to be sort of schooled in on the side. Does he express his preferences for albums that you're playing back over there?
He's always had a fondness for, and it's funny that I mentioned both these artists I foolishly was asked, well, not foolishly asked, I was asked and foolishly responded, how does your album sound? And I said, well, hopefully it's somewhere between Paul McCartney and Brian Eno, which is like, pretty over the top kind of like claims. But they are the two albums that, taking Tiger Mountain by Eno, and anything pretty much by McCartney or Wings, Beatles, does it for my little boy. He's
got good taste.
Yes, and after you've heard True Wheel by Brian Eno a million times over, it's bound to have some kind of like, it's bound to rub off. But he just loved the bit about looking for a certain ratio, and he actually, funnily enough, he loves a certain ratio too, and The Fall, and so lots of stuff that I like. So he's got taste. I don't know. I don't try and make him love my music, but he does seem to listen to a lot of it.
What are some of your favorite records of just the past couple of years, or who are you? What are some young artists that you're most, if they were a stock, you would invest in that stock?
Oh, well, I mean, I've always had a soft spot for Chastity Bell. I've really liked them as a band. And I've always supported them. When they, their records, I always make sure that people knew that I was posting about them and stuff like that, because there's something about them that I really like. The lyrics and the kind of like this kind of sadness in there, but probably I don't really understand, but it's very good. I really love an artist. Well, obviously you'll know Julia Holter. I love John Mao. I love Ariel Pink. Band called Average Sex. I'm just looking at a cassette off here. Very good. I like them so much that I put them out on my own record label.
Oh, nice.
Keel Her, again, I put her records out. I like everything, really. Shabazz Palaces I'm a big fan of.
Are there albums that you've done in Tim's Twitter listening party that were things you weren't really a fan of yet until you had that experience? What's something that's entered your personal heavy rotation as a result of a listening party?
Well, I mean, the biggest thing for me out of probably all of it, and was the Coldplay tweeted along to their film, and I'd never seen it before, nor particularly, felt engaged with the band, and I am a huge fan now. And it's just, they're so brilliant. It's like, what's not to love? And and I just, so that was a big thing. I mean, there's been so many. I'll have to look at the list of ones we've done, but lots I'd never heard before. There's lots. Yeah. And there's lots of artists that I've heard some of their records, but not all of them. Obviously, when it comes to like bands like New Order and The Cure and The anything that Tim Pope's done as a video director. When we started doing the video, I've. Hannah Tell, I invited along because I was a fan of hers. Again, done a couple of Julia Holter records, and Vanessa Francis, a new artist from Ireland, really beautiful. So, and Chastity Bell, done lots of new artists as well as all of the classic kind of, the ones that we all love, and the ones that haven't shown up yet because I don't really know how to get hold of them. So.
But I've got to say, I imagine that this is just for the year 2020, which has been sucky, obviously, the fact that this listening party thing has expanded into such a robust and fun volunteer project on your part, it's got to be like, do you feel just a new level of joy? I don't know. I feel a new level of joy from it. It must be nice.
Yeah, I'm really, like Matt Johnson doing the last night, and Shabazz Palaces, last night too, and then I can't even remember what, having Teenage Fan Club doing 3 so far or whatever. It is amazing. It is amazing. I love the fact that they love it, and I love them for doing it. That's it.
Massive thanks to Tim Burgess for that sweet conversation, and even more so for continuing to donate his time to host his Twitter listening parties. timstwitterlisteningparty.com for more info. And episode 54 of LSQ features a chat with Kyle Thomas of King Tuff. That'll be out in a few weeks. Thanks so much for checking out episode 53, and you can reach me with questions and feedback on Twitter @JennyLSQ.